I've already lost one congressional seat. What about the quality of life that we now enjoy? The impact in so-called vibrant corridors with parks, cultural centers, trains, and other benefits, similar to the Perth Amboy redevelopment project that was just halted and unfinished. Is this what the citizens of New Jersey have to look forward to?
Thank you. Myra Becker. All right, we'll go to Dana Sokolitsky. Donna?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, Donna Sokolowski, and I wasn't planning on speaking, and I'm not as politically astute as some of these people are here, but I read the plan, and quite frankly, it gave me chills. And for something that's supposed to be institutionalized and go through down the road through different political parties, governors, whatever, I agree with the gentleman back here that said there should be more meetings, and he was never responded to when he asked about it. To push something through that's this vital to our state, we have a lot of problems here, I agree. And just these few public meetings is, to me, ludicrous. But then what do I know? And again, this sounds like a total top-down approach government-wise. It almost sounds to me, again, not being as politically astute, as just another level of bureaucracy. If it's supposed to be the local governments that are supposed to be doing everything, and the zoning and the planning and everything else, then they should be doing it. And why do we have a Department of, DPA and the Department of Transportation and stuff in the state if they need another level of bureaucracy to have them talk to each other? That I don't understand, and maybe I'm misreading this plan. But to me, it just sounds like another level, not protecting property rights. I agree with a lot of these other people that spoke already. And it's very vague. It is not specific. Like George says, it doesn't have the financials in it. The terms are vague. If it's, again, going to be institutionalized, it needs to be a lot more specific than that. Because, like somebody else here said, I can foresee that people can tweak it to however they want it to get whatever they want done, political cronyism, anything like that. And again, I feel that the citizens, the tax-paying citizens, the property rights are not being protected. Let me see, what else do I have to say? New Jersey, in my opinion, and I was born and raised here, I lived in Virginia for about 15 years, but I'm back, is a state where people, I don't believe, want to live in big cities. They want to live in the suburbs. They want to enjoy having some property around them. They work in the big cities. We're kind of somewhat a bedroom community state. They work in Pennsylvania, they work in New York City, but they want to have land. They don't want to have these little clusters that they're being forced to live in. I work here in Newark, but I live out in Somerville. Even that's a little bit more crowded than I prefer, but I don't want to live here. I work here and I don't want to live here. So I don't necessarily agree with this cluster thing. And you said something, I think, about property taxes, or somebody said that this doesn't affect property taxes. I failed to see that, because when I read it, I was seeing more that you're pushing towards renters, high level of renters, as opposed to property owners. Where does property taxes come? I mean, that affects property taxes. Where does the money come to sustain these towns? So that's my small opinion.
Thank you.
Myra.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
I'm back. Thanks. That's right at the time my head worked. Myra Becker. I'm here representing Middlesex County Department of Planning, as well as the New Jersey County Planners Association. Our comments dovetail with one another. I hope it's okay. I'm representing two entities, and we submitted detailed comments, and we've been working with Jerry and OTA and the staff over time, and I hear a lot of different things tonight, but like standing back as a planner, what I appreciate is I know that the where agencies together will have representatives and they'll talk to different initiatives and they'll be on the same page so that you don't have agencies contradicting one another, and that happens a lot in state government where DEP will contradict what affordable housing wants and you don't get anywhere and no one's talking to anyone. So OPA was created, I think, to try to get at that. So I really appreciate that. I also appreciate the idea as a county planner that the plan looks at, okay, let's talk more state agency, cross, horizontal, and then it's been open to the idea that we'll use the counties to talk to the municipalities and they can continue the good work that they've been doing with product acceptance and farmland preservation planning and wastewater management planning. I don't know if people here even realize that your county planning departments are doing those plans on behalf of the municipalities. So we're talking to the local municipalities all the time. So this plan could, in theory, fold us into that and really kind of get the wheels moving and oil them well so that things start happening. You know, I think that there's a lot to be optimistic about, and I think that a lot of these fears will go away once people better understand what this plan is, because I don't think it will give rise to a lot of people's fears. It's not meant to be a threatening document. So I think people just will learn as we move forward, and hopefully that will make it a more positive process for everyone.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you.
Mark, terrible.
Yes.
Mr. Terrible.
Mark Terrible, Aberdeen. I actually have two statements. The second one I'm sure would run over 5 minutes, so I would like to read it after everyone else has had their say, and I will read them as quickly as I am able. Members of the New Jersey State Planning Commission, New Jersey residents in attendance, and members of the press, I draw your attention to a family of contradictions in the foundation of this plan. Regarding state values, as listed page 28, includes several whose purpose is to encourage people to live in and presumably purchase homes in certain areas, while also promoting, quote, equity, unquote. Equity is a term that is used for many things, but as used here, at this place in the document, its core meaning, as far as I can tell, is fairness. Again, we can argue about what's fair, but it is not fair to offer someone a sweetheart deal and then punish him for it over decades or generations. I recall from my youth breakfast cereal packaged in boxes, each in an individual serving, and the individual boxes sold in packaged assortments. I recall that in each package there were 1 or 2 cereals that everybody wanted and one that nobody wanted. But somebody had to eat the booby prize for breakfast. When the state, rather than the marketplace, decides what assortment of choices will be available, somebody will be left with the least desirable choice. And while not everybody wants the same things, it's very unlikely that the state will get it right. One can argue that the marketplace can't fully meet everybody's needs because resources are finite and therefore scarce, but in the marketplace, prices convey information and direct resources to their best use. Contrariwise, if the state insists over time on preferring one sort of housing, city and downtown, to another, backyards and picket fences, the market distortions will continue to grow. Moreover, the long-term effects will be perverse. People who were locked out of suburban or rural home purchases because of the price and forced into city or downtown purchases because they were cheap may hope to see their home values rise, but if ever more urban housing is pushed onto an unwilling market by these policies, home values in these areas will stagnate, making it harder for people to plan for retirement, pay for their children's college, or start a business. It will also make it harder for them to sell if and when they wish to move somewhere else. On the other hand, the few who are able to afford more desirable homes will find their values growing disproportionately with time. One struggles in vain to find any notion of fairness in this scheme, and it is the same if we reverse the roles of city and suburban housing. Artificial scarcity helps those who are able to buy into it early. Artificial abundance hurts those who are forced into it. These are the iron laws of economics. They cannot be made to dance to the planner's tune, nor will they bow to the gods of the Garden State values. There is no equity here, but a wall erected by government that creates a permanent chasm between the well-to-do and the everyman. Nor does this address a very real problem with urban neighborhoods, their exquisite sensitivity to crime, drug use, and other forms of civic disorder. To its credit, the plan mentions them and admits that their solutions are beyond its scope, but the solutions are not made a precondition for herding people into the cities, even though we should have at least a decade, if not a generation, of proven success before assuring people that their lives, property, and family will be secure under this scheme. For whatever reason, these problems have bedeviled our cities since the 1960s, and only when the city government was passionately committed to restoring civic order, for example, the Giuliani administration in New York City, have these conditions been reversed, nor have the actions needed been popular. They run counter to a legion of social theories and agendas, not to mention entrenched interests. Unless we believe that these problems have or soon will disappear, it is simply irresponsible to offer people incentives via market distortions to move into the cities without giving them the tools to deal with them. But what tools will serve? Barricaded neighborhoods, private armed security forces on every corner, vigilance committees? It seems unlikely that the authors of this plan would be receptive to these means. Okay. The results are neither livable nor walkable. Where city neighborhoods have come back from the dead, it has been contrary to the wishes of planners. People have created loft apartments in violation of building codes because that's all they could afford. Then the city belatedly acknowledges their existence and either allows them or evicts everybody. Then, if people are not evicted, the neighborhood improves. Gentrification of whatever kind is a bottom-up process in which the stakeholders of the tenants and home buyers whose sweat equity creates real equity of the economic kind. It is not a gift from the panel halls of the planners. Finally, we should be deeply suspicious of government influence and government power in the real estate markets. Anyone who doubts this should look back at the real estate bubble from which we have still not recovered. I'll skip a sentence. The more government tries to run things, the more power it must have, the more power it takes, the more opportunity there is for the unscrupulous to bend it to their own ends, with dire consequences that when the music stops, as stop it eventually must. Okay, that's fine. I only have a sentence left in it. Thank you.
Michelle?
Oh, sorry. I'm not going to mention all of what before, but some of the points I'd like to make are, number one, I would have been pleased had there been something in there that the state took a position that eminent domain was not the way that the state should go. I think that would have been important to a lot of the concerns with sustainable development and all of that's been mentioned. When there is another development plan, my concerns are, does it become another machine? Does it become another machine that just is run away in the government? Is there going to be a watchdog? Is there going to be a counterbalance? I think that's very important to anything that happens, because when there is no counterbalance, things go out of control. You were talking about the infrastructure of the cities, and the apartments, and the condos, and bike paths, and all that, and transportation, and this is what it looks like when it goes wrong. And this is what it looks like when it goes wrong for 6 years. This is the town I live in. And 6 years ago, they took the land, they raised it, they used eminent domain, and if anybody wants to look at it, I'd be happy to share that. That's what happens when something goes wrong.
Where is that?
What town? In Cliffside Park, New Jersey. So this is actually what happens. Nobody's done anything. That's why I am concerned. So we're all a product of our filters, we're a product of what happens. And this is deplorable. One of the things they found out most recently, not too long ago, and as I say, this is 2006, and it looks the same now, 2012, is that the infrastructure of the sewers is not there. It's going to be costing millions of dollars to do that. The infrastructure is not there. So I don't know what happened to the planning, but they had no plan B. Or that it is plan B. I'm not sure. So the town was decimated. The stores closed. There's no foot traffic. There's no place to park, they remove the municipal parking. This is my big concern, when things get out of control. So my concern that I wish to mention is, how do you balance that? When something goes wrong, what's going to happen? I don't know what my town officials will be doing with this. I haven't done much of it except to move the dirt every October 25th. And then come November 2nd, or the 5th, or 6th, whatever the voting, the next day, the plows stay there and they collect cobwebs. So I know it's a daunting task, but I definitely think you should have people being, who've been up front and should have been commenting on the property rights. This is a very sensitive issue for a lot of people. I think that's an underlying thread in a lot of the conversation.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Judy Jordan? Is there a Judy?
Yes,
right here.
She's in the back.
Somerville also. And my concern is, my comment is about Garden State Value number 8. Provide for healthy communities through environmental protection and enhancement. It says protect and restore the environment, sensitive lands, ecosystems, and natural resources. Ensure healthy places through an increase in quantity and quality of preserved land. Improve quality of air, water, and land. Reduce energy use, carbon emissions, water degradation, and other impacts of development. My concern is the use of the word increase in the quantity of preserved land. And I think if you try to define it more, just like advanced equity, I think that would help people to understand what it means. Because just saying increase in quantity, people are going to think Sackett versus the EPA, where people wanted the EPA to declare their land a wetland area, and the people were thrown off their land. They can't do anything with it. And this scares people when you see terms increase in the quantity of preserved land. What does that mean? And I think you need to define that more so that people, it does make people afraid that there will be eminent domain and that people will lose their land and their rights. And I think you need to define it better or rephrase it somehow.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you. Barbara Vadnais. What is it? Vadnais.
I'm a resident of Mercer County. I'm a licensed civil engineer, and I did take the train to this meeting, and I enjoyed trains, and I hope that in 20 or more years we have more train lines. I hope that the government supports more trains and infrastructure. And the state does need to provide infrastructure so we have we're able to get into urban areas and around the state much easier. My comment is I would like to see that the map, the state plan map, be brought back into the plan. As an engineer and not a policy writer, I need like a visual of where you want to see the transit villages, where you want to see development, where you want to see redevelopment, where you want to see green areas and farmlands. And I think that's really important to keep the conversation going and to see where the overall plan of the state is and so we can connect centers together. I think that's an important part of the document.
Thank you. Chip Halleck.
I'm Chip Halleck. I'm president of the Newark Regional Business Partnership. We're a 450-member organization comprised of businesses, not-for-profit organizations, and educational institutions here in the city. And before I get into my comments, I'll shorten them. I won't read what I was going to do tonight. But I always find it interesting, and I got a lot of education tonight, and I always find attending hearings like this, even though some people feel there may not be enough of them, I find a real eye-opening process because things that I didn't either see in this plan or hear in this plan, other people do. And I think it's a fascinating lesson in civics to participate in a process like this and listen to my fellow citizens and what they have to say. And not always things that any of us would agree with everything that everybody says, but I think it's a very, very good process. Our members and their employees live and work in New Jersey and are concerned about both economic opportunity and the quality of life. They want to be able to provide for gainful employment or business ownership. They also want to be able to enjoy the attributes that make communities places of choice: education, entertainment, a healthy environment. And those aspirations don't have to be mutually exclusive. I think there's a lot that can be accomplished. By looking at a plan like this, I think it's strategic, and I think a lot of the details that many of us would like to see are not going to be in a document that looks at a strategy and tries to help us vision what the state would look like. And those details are going to come later in individual municipalities and as economic decisions are made. Some comments about free enterprise and private property. You know, our members are business owners, they're property owners, and they too are concerned about that. But I think a lot of those details emanate from how people decide to use their property, and there's plenty of flexibility within this framework. This isn't something new. The state plan, redevelopment plan, has been around for a long time. This is just the latest version of it, and finding more ways to bring economic opportunity within the structure of that plan. We are certainly an advocate for economic revitalization in Newark, and there is a lot of capacity. People who have been here for a long time know, and this city used to have well over 400,000 residents and a lot more business. There is infrastructure here. There's no reason not to bring more people here and more businesses here to take advantage of it. That doesn't necessarily mean it has to be at the exclusion of other places. And I think that's an overriding point in here as well. There is great infrastructure here. One point I do want to note, one absolute correction on page 8. We talk about the Port of New York and New Jersey, and it's referred to as the third largest port in the world, which it isn't. It's the third largest port in the country, which is still terrific, don't get me wrong, and we're very proud of it, but it's not the third largest port in the world, so there's one thing that we should change. Talking about the eradication of silos within government is certainly important. We want to be able to see businesses that want to make decisions and move forward with plans, be able to move forward with those plans without undue interference. We think there have been some positive steps that the administration and the legislature working together have made in terms of smarter incentives to help businesses be here and stay here, cutting back to some level on the degree of the growth of state government. We think are positives, and there needs to be a lot more of that in the future. In conclusion, a state plan that contains vision and goals and some guiding principles that have been cited in the plan, coupled with common sense, will go a long way towards ensuring a livable and prosperous New Jersey for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Al, French? French?
Correct.
Correct. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Couple of comments. Number one, I think since the issue of property rights, individual property rights, has come up a number of times, there's nothing in the plan here that I see that talks about anything to protect an individual's property rights in terms of which you may have heard, a property rights council of some sort that would allow those kinds of protections for individuals. And secondly, the other issue about the issue of stakeholders. In my understanding and looking at the plan, stakeholders have been involved. Stakeholders, and I'm not talking about just average citizens who show up, but people who have interest in the plan and who have come to the table longer and been there longer than average citizens have. So we're here at the kind of the end in some way. We already have the draft plan. It wasn't really input into the draft. My concern is that going forward, that there be more citizens involved in the plan, okay? And not just putting comments in, but sitting down at the table. It's one thing to come in an audience like this, another to sit at the table over a period of time. Okay, next, we talked about healthier communities. People have talked about that. Look, everybody would like to be a healthier community. Who's going to define what that is? Right? And second, so I think that needs to be identified. Secondly, we talk about redistributing money from the Garden State Fund to support the objectives of this plan. The issue there seems to be one in which I read a scorecard. We talk about a scorecard. Well, I like to see the scorecard. I'd like to know who devised it. I'd like to know who's going to calculate the scores as to who gets the money. Right? And I think that should be clarified. Somebody before mentioned that there should be a glossary of terms in here. This is not easy to get through for those of us who are not planners, land use experts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm suggesting that that really be something that you incorporate. Secondly, there is, getting into the language of it, not only is it technical in some ways it's vague. Some people say, well, that's good, it's flexible. But we all know that vague language is then subject to interpretation by those who have been not elected to make those interpretations, but any agency head or regulators can then decide what that means. So I would say where it can be more specific, or at least clarified, that would be helpful. I go back, okay, the issue of public-private partnerships. And when we talk about public-private partnerships and green energy, I have to say most everybody knows what happened in some of the most notorious cases of public-private partnership in the Cylinder case. What is there going to be in this plan that's going to protect the taxpayers from traveling down that same road? I don't see it in here. I see a lot of talk about that, of green energy and sustainability, etc. Let's just see. I go back to my issue that I raised earlier, which is it's not real clear to me in here when we talk about on page 14, incentivizing municipalities to create compact, livable communities. And that to me again, and I raised the issue, and I think it should be clarified in this plan, that there should be nothing in this plan that basically starves the suburbs to feed the compact, walkable communities. If people want to live in a walkable community, take Manhattan as an example, as a walkable community. You can walk, you don't have to take the car, you don't have to have a car. But if you don't want to do that, if you want to live in a rural area, because many of us came from a walkable community, we'd like now to be in an area where there's some green grass in that. Okay? We don't want to have to be starved in terms of, and I heard this tonight again, this chase for ratables. And in this plan, there's a criticism of suburbs for looking for ratables instead of looking for other things other than ratables. Now, just to say, when you mentioned before, okay, my last comment. When you mentioned before, give you your example of having Home Depot in a town, and then, so I think somebody's asked you about sustainability. And you say, well, have a Home Depot come into a town, it's a rateable, but then you don't anticipate down the road congestion and traffic and all that. That's not sustainable. I don't understand that, frankly, because we asked about sustainable, and you talked about not sustainable. So it's like defining a word by saying what it is not. But what's the alternative to that? When communities are being strangled, suburban communities being strangled by education costs, being strangled by by tax and property taxes, etc. They do look for ratables. It's the way you have to go to survive. Thank you.
Thank you, Al.
Frank, talk?
Yeah. I don't have a prepared speech, but I just want to comment a little bit on what I heard. One, your opening comments and some of the stuff I've read on the internet with the EPA and Transit Authority and the New Jersey, they got a sustainable website. It is vague. Like this gentleman said, he's covered a lot of what I'm interested in too. It is kind of vague. And as everybody knows, the devil is in the details. And for myself, I'm worried about the details and how that's going to impact me in the long run. And that's what I want to know. All right, so that's all I got. Thank you.
Shelley Kennedy.
Thanks. Okay. I have been to the previous meeting, and I've already said a lot of things, so I won't repeat them. I do want to say one thing, though, is that as a taxpayer, a citizen of New Jersey, and someone who pays property taxes, I'm helping pay for this meeting. And if I wanted to talk about a subject that's off topic for my 5 minutes, I should be allowed to do that because I'm helping pay for this meeting. There are few enough meetings for us at this point. 6 is all we have to give input publicly. That's astonishing. I know people who have driven over an hour to get to their nearest meeting. That's wrong. You have people with no cars. You have people who cannot get out. You have people who do not drive. You have older people who are not represented in this process. And that's wrong. We need more input. We need more public input. Why was there no public input? I'd like to know that. The public input is happening now at the end when the plan's already been drawn up. We should have been involved at the very beginning. We, the people who own the land that will be affected by these policies, should have been included at the beginning. And now, we're being told 6 and only 6. But I looked at the resolution from Governor Christie and Lieutenant Governor Guadagno, and it says there will be at least 6 meetings. There could be more. It doesn't say 6 and only 6, right? That's a public document. Anyone here can look it up. You can also look up all the executive orders online, Executive Order 78, and I would encourage you to do that. We need more input. We need more meetings. The plan has a good base. I think people here would like to help formulate it in a way that would make the citizens of New Jersey happy, that would create jobs, that would help save whatever environment concerns need to be saved, to reserve for future use what needs to be reserved. But it's going to be predicated on having adequate citizen input at this point. And I don't mean the stakeholders. Those aren't stakeholders. We're the stakeholders. We own the property. Developers, private citizens. Now, the assumptions of the plan go into such things as a need for sustainability. Why? Why do we need sustainability? Nobody knows what it means. We must have these definitions, and we must have them online where people in the next meetings can see them and reference them, so we're not all asking the same questions all the time. It all needs to be online. A transcript of each meeting should be online where we can clearly read what people have said before, because then we'll get ideas on other things we want to talk about. This process has not been transparent. And again, we the people are paying for this process. It's not right. I'd like to know that we have representatives in the state, in the government, that will help us here. Now, personally, in terms of getting more of these meetings, I'd go to all of them if I could. I find them very interesting. They're not boring at all. Whoever said they were boring is crazy. I've learned more at these meetings and doing this than I have practically in my college life. Now, somebody was saying earlier, and I don't remember who, that all these plans are linked, and that is so. The state plan is broad, and it encompasses a lot. It's not meant to do everything and be all things to all people, and that's good. The problem is it's not fixing the problems we already have. We have massive problems in the state right now. How will this plan use free market incentives? How will the plan use free market incentives to fix these problems? That's not described anywhere. Another assumption with this plan is that there's going to be these unknown vast groups coming into the cities from somewhere. I don't know where. We lost a congressional district. We've had a net outflow of people in the past several years. The data, the population data on which this plan is based, I believe comes from 2000 census data. Is that correct? I think.
That's what we had something.
I don't know if that was revised for 2010, but I do know there were some projections or some projections made forward in 2005 and were used, or 2009.
Shirley, we're going to have to wrap up.
Those need to be revised to now. We should be working on current data, not 10-year-old data. I think the plan should be extended 6 months, 1 meeting per county, and then use current data.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Donna Joy Harrington.
It's no coincidence that our son is headed the New Jersey State Plan talks about page 17 and 18. It talks about the development and redevelopment of urban centers.